Let's talk Broadcom, man. I mean, they absolutely smashed it, had a huge reaction after the bell, but that's kind of tempered today, only up 3%.
Yeah, so just kind of by the numbers, right? EPS beat by 6%, revenue beat by 2%, but it was the guide and the future comments that got everybody super excited. I mean, listen, revenue up 25%, non-GAAP EPS up 45%, AI up 77%. Infrastructure software, a lot of VMware up 47%. Pretty awesome. But in the end, it was all about ASICs. Okay. And these are the competitors to GPUs that are typically higher efficiency, lower cost, and a little harder to program, particularly if you are locked into CUDA. So a couple questions, right, that analyst interactions was all about the confidence in the future growth. And if you Hawk rattle off a bunch of future wins that they haven't baked into the financials or the forecast. It was funny how little conversation there was about VMware, right? And if you remember, the past couple quarters, half the call was dedicated to VMware. A little bit of talk about pull-ins, and Hawk said, "Hey, no material timing effects that's going to impact Q1s or Q2." And I think, net, it was all about confidence in future growth in their business, which, by the way, was in sharp contrast to what we saw with NVIDIA, AMD, and we're going to talk about Marvell.
Yeah, thanks for leaving that out there. Look, everything was really tidy. This is a company that has its strength and its diversity. It has the ability to take and lead in a direction that's future forward, but at the same time, their real ethos is always sort of about being able to support a product and a customer. And that sort of might sound a bit in contrast to how the market reflects it at time, but in reality, they don't tend to want to compete. And so you look at like Apple moving away from basically everyone, but in actuality, the partnership between Apple and Broadcom has deepened in a lot of ways, and that's been announced. You look right now what's going on, NVIDIA and Broadcom have a really important partnership. I really do think that Ethernet will be the scale. You can call it an Apple Android thing, but I think in the end, the AI data center scale will be built on Ethernet, not on InfiniBand. There will be its applications for it, but that's just how I see the future. So that will create this really important symbiotic relationship that's going to exist, even if they are GPUs. Now, of course, there's, I think, a lot of enthusiasm about the XPU business. It's not really very big yet. I mean, that's kind of one of those things that like people are kind of, I don't think the actual XPU part, I think the total AI business is like 4 billion now. And I think the, 4 billion for the quarter. I think it's bigger for the year. It's like 16, but I think like 75% of that's still networking.
Yeah,
I think the vast majority of that number is not the XPU. So a lot of people, when people like you and me start kind of pointing out that the XPU may or may not be a non-factor, may have a real competitive posture at some point to NVIDIA, people kind of want to throw cold water on us about it. And I just keep saying it's not a zero-sum game. It's going to be both. Okay. First of all, we know that accelerators are going to show up in a big way at the edge. We know accelerators are going to show up in a big way for hyperscalers that want to control their own destiny. They're going to want to build their own chips, build their own network infrastructure. We're already seeing this happening. This doesn't mean that they're going to just not use NVIDIA, though. That's like the thing is like everybody wants it to be one or the other. That's not how it's going to work. It's going to end up being both, and there's going to be a really big market for it. And I see that happening over the next few years. And that's something that the investor in Broadcom should be really encouraged by is this is a net new revenue stream. They're building for multiple hyperscalers with more on the horizon, multi-generation build-outs. This is something they talked about. And I expect every generation that these commits, they're going to get a little bit bigger. And then you look at what they've talked publicly about co-packaged optics and memory, HBM, custom HBM. Now we know Marvell sort of led first, or at least came out first, but you can absolutely be sure they're going to come out and they're going to build that as well. Then you start adding it all together. Then you take mainframe software, VMware, the core chip business that they've had for a long time, everything, PCIe, network route switch, back of the rack, front of the rack, all that stuff. And that's really stable business. And most of the time they tend to have, like with SerDes, where they have like IP control and they cannot be actually encumbered by competition in that particular area. So they end up winning every design. So anyways, a little bit like Qualcomm does on certain parts of the phone. So it's a really great business, great results, as expected. Market is just in shambles. And when we talk tariffs, we'll talk about a little bit more about why it's in shambles and why these things aren't up more. But it was still a good freaking quarter. Like, God, people, like, buy this.
It's interesting. It's interesting how the market has kind of wavered, right? It was up big time, and it's up today 6%. Maybe that,
six now. It was 3 a little while ago. I think when I started. I think it was 3 when we started talking.